So what it is basically is going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, you're going across in threes all the time, but you just try and accent every fourth one. So it's like, you know, and so on. And it's a lot faster. You won't get as tired as if you were trying to do something that fast with 2 fingers. You can just, you know, just basically sit there and saw away at it for a long time. You know, and it's helped me out a lot. You know, it helped me avoid having to use a pick throughout my whole career. You know, I've just always played fingers, and most of the tremolo picking stuff our band does, and the faster 16th note stuff I can usually keep up with. So it's essential, you know, I use it in just about every song. It just depends on what the part is, if the chord is going to sound good or not. Sometimes, like, we'll use a dissonant chord, like, you know, I guess this is an augmented triad here. You know, and just mix that in there, and that works good with a whole tone scale. Like, you know, it just depends on the riff. If I'm not gonna play a chord that the guitar players aren't playing. You know, if I'm playing a chord, it's usually to make their chord sound even bigger and fuller. If they're playing this one, I'll play that one too. If it's a place where it fits, you know, maybe like at the very end, like, if we're all hitting that same note at the same time, I could make instead of just going, I could go. But there are riffs actually. This is the wrong bass for me to show some of these because it's our lower tuned bass. But for like From Skin to Liquid, there's a lot of like, you know, there's that chord is in there because it's a whole tone riff. There's a few things like that. It's just really wherever it fits, and I wouldn't want to overuse it because then it could make things kind of muddy or whatever if I was constantly trying to do it. Not to mention it would be really, really hard. These are thicker strings and a bigger spacing than a guitar, so to try and match all their chords would be really hard. But in a few select spots, it works pretty well. I definitely don't have the most scooped sound in the world. And when we say scooped, we mean, you know, just for anybody who doesn't know it, if you're looking at your EQ, it would look like that. You know, like lots of lows and then lots of highs, but very little mid. I sometimes even have a little bit of a reverse of that, like almost like a frowny face, so that you can, instead of a smile, like a scoop, I'll have something reversed where there's a lot more mid, just so I cut through. That might not be what I would use to record with, but on stage it's good to have a lot of mid-range in there to actually pop through. But you don't want it to be interfering with the guitar sound. That's kind of up to the engineer. They'd be better, our front of house guy or our producers in the studio would be better at answering that question than I would, because they know exactly which frequencies to dial in to make things sound right and to find a spot for everything. What you don't want is for there to be some kind of collision. The worst collision that we can have, in my opinion, is to have the bass sound too much like the kick drum. That is too much. A really scooped bass sound can sound an awful lot like a clicky kick drum. And you put those two things together. Let's say the kick drum, like, let's look at, you know, like maybe the beginning of Hammer Smashed Face, for example, where it's going. That stuff there. Now, I'm going like this, which is a galloping thing, but the drums are just doing straight 16th notes, like, you know, like a typical kind of Slayer fast double bass. So because we're playing slightly different things, my playing and the kick drum, if they were too close to one another, it would definitely make it sound like things were going crazy up there. You know, there's times when I'm matching exactly what Paul's doing on the kicks, and then it wouldn't be as bad, but there are other times when I'm going with the guitar, like the diddlin, 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 and he's doing something a little different. If he were doing on the kicks, diddlin, 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 it wouldn't matter as much, but because he's doing a bit of a different pattern, we're doing the gallop, he's doing straight 16ths, it's better that my bass does not sound like his kick drums, because then it would sound like a whole bunch of kick drums all over the place. And that's not what we want. One thing that's helped me a lot, and especially since Pat joined the band too, because he's a firm believer in this as well, is just doing stuff, for finger independence, so that you're really using, all of your fingers, like, the hammer smash face thing, that's like that. It would be so much harder if I only played with 3 fingers. Like, you'd have to be scrambling around to find the notes, but that's pretty easy because it's all under your hand in one spot. So I would recommend, exercises like that, just basic stuff where you're getting one note per, 1 fret per finger. And that develop those kind of good habits, because the more, it's that whole economy of motion principle, like that you'll hear, shred guitar players talk about. The less motion you make, the faster you can play. If you're wasting a lot of energy moving around, like instead of going, that's not nearly as good as assigning 1 fret to each finger, so practice things that are, I would say practice things that are going to save you effort, so then when you put your full effort in, you're getting that much more out of it, instead of, you don't want to waste your energy, I mean, it just makes sense. And I'm glad I learned like that. Yeah, in particular, like I said, when Pat joined the band, he writes all these different things that would be nearly impossible to do if I was one of those guys who mostly played with just these 3 fingers on my left hand or my fret hand, instead of, having all 4 of them be quite independent.
Do you write riffs in guitar, or is it?
All on bass. I can't play guitar at all. I mean, when I say I could pick it up and go, but I can't actually play guitar worth a darn. I can't play better than someone who's been playing it for a week. I just play bass. That's what I do. So I can write on that. It's not that hard to write on bass because it's got the same notes. It's got all 12 notes just like the guitar does. So they're all there. You can just show the guitar player, like I might come up with a part like or whatever, something, and then I want them to go with the chords instead. It's easy enough to just say, hey, play chords there instead of single note like what I'm doing. Play power chords or play octave chords. Whatever. They're close enough instruments that explaining to the guitar players what I want, even if it's a little different from the bass line, is not that hard. And really 90% of the time, the bass line and the guitar part are the same thing in our band. There's only maybe that 10% of the time where I'm getting outside of the guitar part. So you could say that either I'm playing guitar parts on my bass or they're playing bass parts on guitar. Depends on how you look at it. In this band, the whole band is a rhythm section. We have 2 rhythm guitars. I mean, they'd occasionally do leads, but it's 2 rhythm guitars, a bass guitar, which is also playing rhythm, and then a drummer. And then the vocals don't even hold a melody. It's basically a rhythm of itself too. So it's rhythmic music, you know what I mean? It's not melodic music that much. I mean, there is melody, we have some stuff in there that's melodic and you can remember the melody, but an awful lot of it is rhythm. And the whole band is a rhythm section. When we're all playing, if I'm playing the exact same thing that the guitars are playing, then we're all rhythm players, really. You know, we're all part of the rhythm section. Only when they break away and do the occasional lead is there a melody instrument above the rhythm. Other than that, it's just like a big tank, you know what I mean, like a bulldozer of rhythm. And that's it. That's what we want it to be. We want it to sound like a big machine just rolling over everything.